program this week is Rebecca. She's the Executive Director of the Piqua Compassion Network. You want to come up?
No, delighted. Thank you. Well, it's good to be back with the Kiwanians. I think I spoke maybe last year or the year before. I don't know if I was still new. I've got another year under my belt and new projects, and it's always a delight to get out in the community and talk about what Piqua Compassion Network does. And I have a couple flyers I'm going to start around that will kind of, you can keep for your own. Feel free to take a couple extra if you need, because a lot of times people don't realize what the Piqua Compassion Network does. Now, how many of you, do we have any new people that don't know what Piqua Compassion Network? Okay, we've got somebody new. I always love to get out and talk about the programs and services that we offer. Now, we're a faith-based organization that started, oh golly, it's been, it'll be 12 years this fall. We were fashioned after Partners in Hope in Troy. We found that the churches, the local church community, the secretaries were struggling because we would have people come in and looking for assistance. And so rather than run them around to everybody, the idea came up to have one network that people could come and be able to get service, get direction to other services. And in 2007, in September, right after Labor Day, Piqua Compassion Network opened their doors down in the Bethany Center. And with the hard work of a number of volunteers who made that possible, they cleared out space, they renovated rooms down there, and we started seeing clients at that time. And again, it was fashioned after Partners in Hope in Troy. Our folks had gone down and spent some time with the ladies and gentlemen down there. They have actually been in Troy for almost 30 years at this point. And we decided we wanted to model that. And we have, first it started out with having crisis situations averted. People coming in, they need help with a utility bill. They need some other, maybe a prescription that they're in between health insurance. We've grown into helping them with work boots. We get a number of people that obtain jobs, they've been out, and with the hiring going on in the companies, they need a steel-toed work boot or a tennis shoe. And if they've been out of work for a while, sometimes that extra expense is a little bit cumbersome. We work with the employers and a lot of the staffing agencies to identify those folks and be able to provide those work boots, and we also give them a tank of gas to get to and from work for that first week or two of employment till they can get a paycheck and get something under their belt. Back in about 2010, we were helping with these needs, diapers, all sorts of things. 2007, fast forward to 2019, there's a lot of agencies that are in concert with one another, but the big thing is that makes us a little different is we're faith-based. We're able to have people come in. Sometimes they tell us they bare their souls. They feel comfortable talking to us. We are able to sit down with them and assess from start to finish what the needs are. Sometimes they come in and they see that, we have them fill out a form that talks about their income and expenses, and they see that they're spending so much on their utility bill every month. Well, our care guides are all people that have lived in the community, who have worked in the community, and are familiar with the ins and outs of things, that we're able to say, hey, did you realize that the city of Piqua has a budget billing, or that when you become a senior citizen, that if you have a certain income level, that you're able to get a reduction? And people don't know about these things. So we not only help them with the physical things and maybe able to give cash or financial assistance, but sometimes that assistance that we're able to sit down and talk about is invaluable to them because they just don't know the things either that are out there or that they may qualify for. For instance, another issue that we had come up recently was people on disability. There's a number of people that don't realize that if you're on a disability, you can work, you can supplement your income at no threat to your existing as long as you stay within those guidelines. And there are organizations in this county that'll sit down, they will pick them up, drive the clients to and from places. They can even come to our place to meet with them. We have space available to meet with anybody, any organization that has a service to offer, or any client that needs to come in and have services. So putting together those partnerships, we had one gentleman that didn't realize that, and he'd been sitting out there on that very limited income. He could do some work, and between working with the Ohioans Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, I'm getting all the different acronyms and things together, sometimes it's tough to remember. Working with that organization, being able to get the work beats for him and the tank of gas, this person's, his whole countenance just lightened up because he was feeling like he wasn't able to contribute to his home, his household, his income. And I've seen such a big drastic change in this gentleman, and he's still working that job. As long as you coordinate, don't get too over a limit with Social Security, you know, they can supplement, and their quality of life just becomes so much better. And the other thing is just being able to sit down with someone and being able to offer prayer and saying, look, we realize there's things going on. You're a believer, I'm a believer. Let's go to the Lord about this. And I can tell you, I joined the organization in March of 2017. And of course, a lot of the care guides that work for the organization, they do a lot of the one-on-one client work. But I get involved in a number of things too. And I can tell you, I've never had anybody turn me down for prayer. People are appreciative. They're appreciative that we take the care. I offer them a bottle of water, a cup of coffee, a cup of hot tea, come in, sit down, and just have a respite place. In 2016, before I came on board, we made the decision to leave the Bethany Center and move into the Old Grace United Methodist. The education wing became available. Pastors John and Stacy Scott at True Vine had that space available, and this gave us a lot more. Number one, we were handicap accessible. If any of you know of the Bethany Center, we were located upstairs. We used to have to bring all of our stuff downstairs and meet with folks. And in that big room, that didn't offer the privacy for people to talk about some of the things that are near and dear to their heart that they were going through. So we made that change, and we have seen quite an increase of people now that come that we're able to meet one-on-one and privately and be able to do a lot more of our classes because Pastors Scotts have opened up the church. If you remember Grace United Methodist, the one there at the corner of Ash and Franklin, that sanctuary is just absolutely beautiful. The architecture and the things, and to be able to go over there, there were some little rooms off to the side. And sometimes we've had victims of domestic violence that they are afraid to go get help. They don't want to go to the shelter. They don't want to get out of the situation, or they're afraid of making that change. Well, some of us that have been victims of domestic violence that are working with the network, we're able to sit with them and they can talk about, we can make arrangements, we can have the shelter come up, and vice versa to that. We have become an agency working in concert with the Family Abuse Shelter, the homeless shelter, with number one, the domestic violence victims that come back or that are rehoused. What a lot of people don't realize is if someone maybe is abused in one part of the county, they may relocate in another town for their safety, and especially when it comes to children. We see a lot of that. And helping those families get readjusted and make life new for themselves is something that Piqua Compassion Network has done much of over the last couple of years. The other thing, the homeless population. When someone is homeless, and we have our shelter in Troy, there's a program called Rapid Rehousing that you're able to get help with your rent and your utilities. And where Piqua Compassion Network plays a part is we sit down and we work with them on their budget, because a lot of these folks have not been able to work for a while. They may not have been able to budget some of the reasons for them getting into a position of homelessness. We sit down, and one of the things that we don't do a class of several people, we do that one-on-one, because what we find is that individuality, being able to sit down with that person and look at each individual situation. In domestic violence and in homelessness, we find a lot of these folks are, number one, they're unchurched, but the biggest thing is they don't have a lot of trust. And to build that relationship and let that love of God kind of shine through us and just kind of love them and meet them where they are, sit down, talk about what the things are that you're needing. We've had great success in people being successful and not ending back up in that shelter. We started our relationship with the shelter within the last 2 years, and having those clients, a lot of those were our clients to begin with. They just kind of found their way to kind of the bottom, and we help them work themselves back up to the top. And we really do encourage that fresh start and a new beginning. We have been known as offering a hand up, not a hand out. I cautiously remind everybody, we're not a welfare agency. One of the things that has helped us over the past few years is being able to help those folks that are working, that have a car breakdown, and they have to fix that car or fix a furnace or do something, repair something, and it takes out of their resources. We have no income requirement for the Compassion Network. We will see anybody. Somebody could come in and have their act together and maybe be a victim of domestic violence and have nowhere else to turn. Even in the faith community, sometimes there's a great deal of shame in coming forward. We offer to everybody. And that's one of the things that we're seeing once people get back to work, and we're seeing a lot of people that are on fixed incomes, our senior population that a spouse. It happened in my own family. My own father had a fairly decent retirement. My stepmother became very ill, lingered a long time, it ate up a lot of savings, and sometimes just being able to readjust your income and being able to sit down with a person and say, there's no shame in asking for help and being able to walk alongside people when they're in a crisis mode. 2017, you all heard of the opioid crisis that hit this area, not only Piqua, but the entire Miami County and Ohio in general. And in 2017, many of you may remember that the Hope Over Heroin was held in Piqua, and that was a gathering of all the churches to help support, come together and help get the word out, get people connected with the services. And out of that, then Chief Bruce Jameson came to Piqua Compassion Network, and one of the things that their heart team had created, which is a quick response team for someone that's in an overdose situation, is getting them connected to help. And Piqua Compassion Network was the faith component. Chief Jameson saw the wisdom after one of the heart calls that the person did not want to speak to a law officer for obvious reasons, did not want to speak to somebody from the court, did not really want to speak to a recovery specialist. This person had come from a family of faith, and they wanted to speak to the chaplain. So we decided to partner, and when we decided to offer a 12-step program, we researched, I don't know if you remember the former majors of the Salvation Army, Doug and Bethany Dolder, had worked in the Salvation Army rehab programs, and they were familiar with Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christ-centered 12-step based program for people of faith. And we decided to offer that at Piqua Compassion Network. I went to my board and I said, we have an opportunity to make a change in people's lives, that if they want to have a faith-based 12-step program, it's something we could offer. There was none north of I-75 or I-70 at that point. We have a couple of other ones now that have started. And of course my board, being the concerned people and people of faith actually, said absolutely, let's go for it. And so on January 11th of 2018, we opened our doors there again at the beautiful now True Vine Church, but brought life back into that church facility. We hold the meeting, we start with fellowship over food. One of the things that I learned in ministry school is that fellowship, food, and prayer is a real cornerstone of any ministry, any good church. And so we start out giving them snacks. We have snacks available. We worship. We spend a few minutes of worship. We have every church that I've asked to send either a faith-based worshiper or a worship team have come in and led worship. And then we go into teaching, and then we break off into 2 groups. And that's how we started, a men's group and a women's group. Well, as of today, we are getting ready to break the men's group into another group, 2 groups, and then we have 3 groups with the women. And as you can tell, I love to talk. So women, I don't know if it's just that we like to open up more, but we have a grief trauma group, we have a codependent group, and an addiction group for the women. We have a newcomers group, and we're doing an additional step study. As of this past week, well, in July, we had our 18-month celebration of having Celebrate Recovery. We've had over 2,000 people come through that program. Now, have all of them been Piqua area? They're all Miami County. We didn't stop that as just Piqua residents because we felt that's something that's countywide. So we welcome. We even have some people coming down from Shelby. I have a whole family, that a mother and a father and a son. And this son, it was determined he would never be able to be self-sufficient. He passed his 1 year of sobriety, and he's now on his church's worship team. So we are seeing great success through this program, and that's probably one of our newest things that we do. Another thing that we partner with, and keep in mind, I'm the only paid staff member. I work 20 to 30 hours a week, wink wink. My background, I spent 30 plus years in human resources for the steel industry, and I ended my career in banking, and I decided I wanted to go into ministry and become a chaplain. So I took some schooling, and I was chaplain at Rainbow Babies Children's Hospital at the University Hospitals in Cleveland. And when I needed to come back to Piqua to help take care of my ailing father, I thought, what am I going to do? And God opened the door for Piqua Compassion Network. So a lot of my background with the faith and ministerial kind of lines up with our mission and the things that we're doing. And when I came on board, we were looking at some other programs we could expand. And the flyers you have in front of you, of course I've given you one of the Celebrate Recovery, and I encourage you to pass those out to anybody. I am pleased to announce that we are working, we've gotten an approval to take that now into the Miami County Jail and do that program. So we're going to be able to take a faith-based and do a group for the women and for the men, and be able to sit down and plan, get them before they come out so that they're ready to go into. We are having requests to bring that Celebrate Recovery into other organizations, and we're working to expand that. Now that's your Celebrate Recovery flyer. The other flyer, the side that's got, it shows our programs. We have our basic, or we have what we call our Getting Ahead. They're opportunities for success. We have Getting Ahead, we have Steps to Change, and we do what we call Cincinnati Works. Those are training programs that we've taken into the high school. We take them into different groups. Like I said, the domestic violence shelter, the homeless shelter, we're doing the Steps to Change. That's the financial piece that was developed by Campus Crusade for Christ. It's a 6 weeks program that we sit down, we go over all aspects of their budget. The Cincinnati Works, we're in the process of renaming that Piqua Works. Cincinnati Works was developed by Dave Phillips down in the Cincinnati area, and what that does, it really gets that person ready for a job, interviewing skills, helps them get the job, maintain the job, and advance in a job. Not just get a job and move from job to job, but really build a career, help them walk alongside. We consider people that take that program, we consider them members, and they're members. They can come back to us that as they want to advance, they need that help interviewing, even for a promotional opportunity. Sometimes a person gets on a job for a little while, they don't know how to really get ready to present themselves. We work with the Upper Valley Career Center Adult Division in presenting that program and have had great success with a number of the graduates coming out of that as they get certified and look for other jobs. The backside, well, I should go further, then we've got Celebrate Recovery. The other program that we're growing is our Foster to Stability. The foster, I need not tell you the foster care, the issue with a lot of the children. We consider in the faith community, the foster children are our new orphans. We've had so many people hit in the Piqua area. You can go into the schools and see a number of children that are now being taken care of by their other family members. They've lost their parents to overdoses. We have been working and trying to, we're putting together a faith-based support group for those foster families. You know, when a child goes from children's services into a foster family, the child comes. That family doesn't have any of the resources. They don't have beds, they don't have sheets, they don't have diapers. So we are helping to supply those things to those foster families, and especially, I had this again in my own family. My mother took my nephew in when she was 70 plus years old due to my sister having some issues, and she helped raise him. Well, you know, you're retired, you've got a whole nother life plan. Sometimes you need a little help with that. Well, that's where Piqua Compassion Network can help provide that respite or provide that resource, whatever it takes to help those kids readjust. We work with the schools. One of our newest projects we're working with that we should have installed this school year is we are doing what we call buddy benches. Does anybody know what a buddy bench is? Have you, any of you heard?
Where you have somebody go into school and work with a kid?
No, actually what this is an actual bench. A little boy, a few years ago, overseas actually, in Europe, saw in his class, there were kids that didn't have anybody to play with. They were isolated over here. And they didn't have a friend. They had nobody to talk to. And I know firsthand, because I see these kids sometimes come into PCN with their parents, and they are, or the grandparents or aunts and uncles. You know, you have a child that has lost a parent to overdose. There's counseling, there's all sorts of things going on. And the schools have phenomenal counselors on board and are bringing in mental health. But those kids recognize. So what we're doing is we're going to put a buddy bench on each one of the primary, Spring Creek, Washington, and PCIS, and it'll be decorated, and whenever a child, the kids will be taught that whenever a child is sitting on that bench, you go over and include them. Because one of the things that, when I first came back to Miami County, the county does an assessment every year of a health, the community health assessment. Then you pick out 3 areas you're going to focus. The 3 areas we focused on was maternal and family health, mental health and addiction, and chronic disease. Social isolation in children is one of the biggest things that is happening in this country and in our county. And so this is our part of trying to really get those kids integrated. We feel it'll help stop the bullying and really work on some of that. And I know that as Kiwanians and having children as one of your #1 support avenues, that you could appreciate the need for our kids. You know, there's a staggering statistic that our teens, the #2 killer of teens is suicide. I can't even picture that. I graduated from good old PHS in 1974. That was the last thing on my mind. But how times have changed and how we can come together as a community to be able to help these kids and help them get a life that so many, I look around this room and so many of us that have been blessed to be able to have that good solid upbringing and be able to have a friend and have a buddy and be able to not carry that into their teen years. Tony Lyons, the assistant superintendent, sits on the advisory council. We have an advisory council of 25 people. We have a 13-member board, but then we have a 25-member advisory council from people from all through the community, from business, from education, other social service agencies sit on that. With that, I've probably gone, I hope I haven't gone over my 20 minutes. I told the gentleman coming in, my mom tells me I was vaccinated with a phonograph needle. But you know, my passion for Piqua Compassion Network, my love for this community, my love for kids and people that are hurting, it's hard to kind of stop when you get going. So with that, if anybody has any questions, yes?
How do you get your funding?
We get our funding through churches, through organizations, through United Way, Piqua Community Foundation, Miami County Foundation, the Duke Foundation, and individuals. We do not get any government funding.
And you still do that auction at Christmas?
No, we have not done that for a while. We had a birthday celebration 2 years ago. Do any of you remember? It was the year I took over as director, and that was our 10-year celebration. And one of our board members had a relationship, knew Maurice Claret from Ohio State, and his fall from grace. We were doing an event here at the country club to kind of just have him speak to the community in general. He offered to come in and go into the schools. We took him to PCIS. He talked to the kids there. I still have family members tell me and thank me for bringing him in, because he talked about the importance of choosing good friends and good choices, because we all know his fall from grace. Well, then he went into the high school, the student athletes. Oh my goodness, we had a lunch planned for him. He got to maybe come back and eat a few bites. Those kids just opened up their heart to him. That even I get a little bit emotional thinking about how it impacted a couple of those kids that were going through things that he went through. And he stayed and was able to take time with them and minister to them. We have not done another fundraiser. We're looking at perhaps doing something else. We try to get our funding as much as we can, and we try not to come back to the community again and again, because we know there's a lot of people out there searching in fundraisers, but we have been extremely blessed by people stepping forward and supporting the various different programs.
How many volunteer hires do you have?
Well,
What you're doing, it sounds like a whole bunch.
Well, I'll tell you, we're open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Thursday. We get a lot in that time. We've been taking appointments after hours to help the working people. We're looking to expand our hours here coming up. We need to do those evening hours. I have total probably 50 volunteers, including the Celebrate Recovery. Now, we also have partnered with New Creation Counseling. They come in after we close, and we offer faith-based counseling in Piqua now. They've been trying to get somewhere to do this, and we're looking at giving another day for that. Now, that is New Creation. That's not our volunteers. But Celebrate Recovery, we expanded our volunteers quite heavily in that. Probably, I would say we're almost up to 20 volunteers just with that program alone, and I'm adding 8 more when we go into the jail. So one of the things we do though, you know, we may be closed, but if somebody's in a really bad need, I'm not going to turn them away. We will open up. We'll make an appointment. The one thing that I require my volunteers is, for safety purposes, is not to meet with anybody alone. So we, a lot of times we'll work off hours to help them. Yes.
Rebecca, your jail ministry,
Mm-hmm.
is that to reach for help with drugs, or is that just a faith?
Well, it's going to be basically for PCN, not only it's basically the Celebrate Recovery aspect. Now, Celebrate Recovery handles alcohol, drugs, depression, and other addiction, pornography, gambling addiction. So anybody that wants to take that will go that way, and then we'll be able to help some of those folks as they get out. There's a Stepping Up initiative through the state of Ohio to help folks reintegrate back in and try to help them get situated into employment. And because we do a number of these other services, we're going in with that as well.
We had a jail ministry years ago.
Mm-hmm. It's still there.
Gwen Hayes kind of started that.
Yeah, fully pardoned. They're still in there. They're still doing it. The need is so great though, you know, being able to offer another
Yeah, sounds like expanding it.
Yes, yes, definitely. You know, I'm a big proponent that through addiction, I don't know how anybody gets through some of the things. I personally had a couple of family members that didn't have addiction, but they had the mental health issues. And when you have family members that are, you know, not in a good place, and the rest of the family steps up, and you walk through that, it's tough. It's tough a lot of times helping reintegrate back in. And through faith, my family member, if it wasn't for New Creation Counseling, I don't know if she'd even be with us today. So. Any other questions?
You accept donations,
Oh, yes.
and you are a 501c.
Yes, we're a 501c3. We've been a 501c3. We came in under the Piqua Association of Churches and became a 501c3 in 2010. And we are looking to partner. I was talking to Mark. We're looking to be able to, we partner with a lot of agencies, and I was just talking to him about the kids' closet, the Kiwanis closet, being able to get some things. Sometimes I buy things like that too. You know, people are practical. They don't want to come and ask for help. But if we can get those into the school, I was talking with him about being able to buy some of those things and be able to add to that closet and be able to take some of our funding and be able to do that, because sometimes why reinvent the wheel if we work in tandem and in concert with one another? We really try to keep the duplication of services down.
You have the benches in place already?
No, they're being built.
How much are they?
I'm not sure what the final cost is going to be on that.
Can you let us know?
I can't.
That's one thing nationwide, the buddy benches is what Kiwanis has supported.
I'll be honest with you, I was looking online, what they call the buddy benches, the trademark. They are made of the plastic. What I wanted to do, and what we are doing, is having them built locally by somebody, getting somebody involved, and then having the kids paint them rather than having this product that just comes out, getting them invested in it. So we're putting those finishing touches, and I'll be happy to
We
let
have them in some of the Dayton schools, I think.
Yes,
I've
and
seen stuff on
Miami
the-
East has them.
Okay.
Miami East and Miami County has them. That's where I kind of saw that. I was on that committee I told you about, that community health improvement. And I thought, well, why not do that for Piqua? And when I looked into it, the kids had raised plastic, they had done some recycling. They're made out of recyclable products. But I didn't want to start that. I really wanted to get those in place a lot quicker. Sometimes it takes a year to get something like that going. But I found a local builder that would build them, and and just being able to get them in place. So I will let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Tokens of our appreciation.
I love this. I've got a wee little one right now. Thank you so much. I will put this to very good use. We're just